Everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Maggie Taliska. I am the WEN 2024 Global Programs Director, and we're really excited to be celebrating Women's History Month with you today and with the great panel of WEN superstars. Many thanks to our panelists for being here, as well as Gillian, our current WEN 2024 president, for moderating this event, and thank you to Petrocat. Thank you to Petrocat Properties for sponsoring the event. Just a couple of not ground rules, that's not the right housekeeping notes. If you could keep yourselves on mute until the Q&A session at the end. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat, which should be to the right, and we'll be monitoring that to make sure that that your question is addressed at the end. And really look forward to this panel. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Gillian Flick, our current 2024 president.
Thank you, Maggie. So we just wanted to start with a little bit, if we can go to the next slide here. A little background on WEN. We decided to do this presentation thanks to Sally Hallingstead, who had a great idea here. Our mission and our vision with WEN, they align together, and we're celebrating 30 years. And it's still the same thing that's been carried through. And our mission is to provide these networking opportunities and foster career and leadership development for women who are working in the energy industry, whatever sector they may fall into. We also want to be that premier global organization that educates, attracts, retains, and develops professional women across the value chain. So on our next slide here, we have our current global board of directors. Let's see here, we're going over there. As Maggie stated, I am the current global president. And these are some familiar faces. If you're coming to our conference, please look for us. We are going to have some hours there. We really want to chat with everybody. So these are some familiar faces for you. So let's get started. Thank you to our global corporate members. Sorry about that. We have a lot of great sponsorship from all of our corporate members, and we couldn't do this without all of you. We have to always talk about our WEN podcast because it is wonderful. It is hosted by Byrne, Beth Goldkreller, and Maggie Taliska. So please check it out. You can download it on your favorite app. And then this is for some of our upcoming global events. And of course, we have our 2024 conference, which is going to be in Atlanta from April 28th through the 30th. We hope to see you there. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are celebrating 30 years of remarkable Women's Energy Network achievements. It's crucial to acknowledge the driving force behind its inception. Karyl White, the founder whose foresight and determination brought this organization into existence, is here to talk a little bit about WEN and how it all got started. Karyl has been recognized she recognized that there was a glaring need within the energy industry. A need for a platform dedicated to empowering and advancing women professionals. Rather than waiting for change to happen, she took that initiative and started our great organization. So we have to say thank you to Karyl for that. We wouldn't be where we are today without that great initiative. So I'm very fortunate to sit down with Karyl and ask her some questions. And so welcome to the discussion, Karyl. We know that you had a successful—
Excited to be here.
Yeah, and we're really excited for you. We know that you had a successful career as an energy attorney, but can you tell our audience, your origin story?
Well, I love the question. I've never been asked this question before. And it's really important for why the transactions in my life, why I founded WEN. And the first thing is I grew up in the Chicago suburbs with my parents and my two sisters, one of which is my identical twin. And identical twins are hardwired for close female relationships. We were truly identical, and my mother made us dress alike until we were 16 years old. And we were constantly confused for one another. Eventually I went blonde, and we've never been confused since. So that was a good decision on my part. Twinship gave us a built-in study group and inspired a healthy competition which incentivized us to get good grades and be engaged in lots of meaningful outside activities. We went to a really good public high school in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, and participated in nerdy events such as debate and science fairs. My twin and I were debate partners, and so we did very well in debate. And one of the reasons we always thought was significant to our success was that the opposing team would come in and they'd look at us dressed in these identical outfits. They couldn't tell us apart, and it just threw them off their game. So it turned out to be an advantage in high school debate. Debate taught us a number of important skills. It teaches public speaking, analytical thought, research, and we've always thought it was a great preparation for the business world. I had a wonderful college experience at Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois. It was about 5,000, so it was perfect size, not too big, so you could have a leadership role in activities that you were in. I joined the Delta Zeta sorority, and it gave me a life-changing, pivotal experience in leadership. I became the president of the campus sororities, and a courageous and smart and very accomplished Black woman, Elise Kennard, filed discrimination charges in '71 against the Pi Phis and the Gamma Phis for discrimination. And I talked with the Dean of Women, and we held a hearing on the charges. And the Pi Phis were found to have committed discrimination, were sanctioned. The Gamma Phis, we didn't find sufficient evidence. But it totally broke my heart because Elise was so devastated by this experience, she completely dropped out of college. And it left a forever appreciation in my heart of the impact of discrimination. Then I went to the University of Chicago Law School, which is a very tough school where the slogan rings. It's known as the place where fun goes to die, because all you do is study. And at the time, it was a fairly progressive school, and 20% of the law students were women. And my three closest girlfriends in the class, we kept each other sane throughout those 3 years of law school. After I graduated, I started with People's Gas Light and Coke in Chicago, and I worked for the Interstate Pipeline Division. And my boss was the vice chairman of the company, and he had given me good opportunities, and I had successfully argued the first FERC hearing on pipelines, quote, off-system sales, and that the FERC authorized after that hearing sales of natural gas and in a competitive market. And my boss then sent me to Washington, D.C. for a year to participate in the Congressional Assistant Program. And I was a legislative assistant for my home state senator. And the joke around the company was that I was the only employee that they could do without for an entire year. The following year, my boss promoted me to be head of our D.C. office. And I learned skills like forming coalitions, achieving industry objectives and things like that. Then in '88, I was transferred here to Houston and became the lead attorney for the brand new marketing company for natural gas. I stayed with MidCon, and then Kinder Morgan acquired MidCon, and they sold the marketing company. And then I worked for CMS, and then I went into private practice. My husband is a wonderful, smart, really funny man with great technical skills, which are very complementary to my lack of technical skills. And I have a great son, darling daughter-in-law, and 3 adorable grandsons, and a female dog. So that's my origin story.
Oh, wonderful. So you were Chicago to DC. I was wondering how you ended up in Texas and you stayed in Houston. Is that your favorite city out of those 3?
I like Chicago, but not in the winter. So it's kind of climate related.
Yeah, I understand that.
And my twin still lives in Chicago, so I can go to Chicago in the winter.
Yeah, you can visit.
So it's climate related. But I found DC to be, it's all about who you know and what you can get. And to me, it was a great learning environment, but it wasn't a place that I wanted to stay long term.
So what inspired you to establish the Women's Energy Network 30 years ago?
In 1992, I attended a Martha Washington celebration in Laredo, Texas, with its sister city across the border, Nuevo Laredo. And it dramatically changed my life. So I've always thought that Martha Washington should be the patron saint of WEN. I had a brief encounter with a female Hispanic judge, and she had strongly recommended that I participate in Leadership Texas, which I'd never heard of before. And it was the best advice I've ever gotten from a complete stranger in my life. Leadership Texas takes about the top 100 female manager types that are from diverse fields in business and nonprofits, and that are successful in their careers, but are also significantly giving back to the community, because Leadership Texas doesn't want to invest in women that aren't going to pay it forward. And just as a side note, our famous Texas Governor, Ann Richards, was one of the founders of Leadership Texas. And Leadership Texas, and I participated in '93, and it featured exclusively successful female speakers talking on a variety of subjects. And they were brilliant leaders and great speakers. And most important, they were frank and truly authentic about their successes and their failures. And it taught me for the first time on a soul level what success looks like in a female form, because I really hadn't seen that in business at the time. And it was something I never got from my very prestigious congressional assistant program. And so the year after Leadership Texas, for the first time in my life, I was just on fire. And I accomplished things I never dreamed of doing. And it taught me an invaluable lesson that when you see success in a form that looks like you, whether it's racially, gender, your interests, it gives you the confidence on a basic DNA level that you can accomplish great things. And one of my favorite comedians, Trevor Noah, has a great quote. He says, "We tell people to follow their dreams, but you can only dream of what you can imagine. And depending on where you come from, your imagination can be quite limited." And Leadership Texas vastly expanded my imagination. On the work side, one of my primary responsibilities was negotiating these new natural gas sales contracts. And I became bored out of my mind negotiating basically the same contract all the time. And so I put together a coalition of about 40 energy companies, and we developed the first standard natural gas sales contract, which was adopted by GISB, and then NASB, and then other standard contracts like the electric contract followed from that. I also started a diversity initiative at MidCon, and a number of women and Black employees were doing officer level jobs, but they never could get promoted above, at most the director level. So after Leadership Texas, I went to my senior management and told them what I wanted to do. And you'll love the response. Every man said, "What is diversity and why would we want that?" So I had explained what diversity was and how it benefits the company. But they were great and responsive. And when in about 9 months after the diversity initiative started, they promoted the women and the Black whose promotions had never come through. And then the most important thing and closest to my heart was founding WEN. I wanted to create a platform that could do for women in energy what Leadership Texas had done for me. Now, I'm not the brightest or the dumbest bulb in the pack, but I knew I didn't have to recreate the wheel because the Leadership Texas format was outstanding. And I've never been, experienced anything like it in my life. But in the 5 years I'd been in Houston, I'd only met 6 other women in energy. And so I had a luncheon one day downtown and told them what I wanted to do, and I wanted their honest feedback. Well, they were very enthusiastic. They all got on the bandwagon, and those 7 women and I were the first board of the Women's Energy Network. And very similar to WEN's mission now, if not identical, we wanted WEN to educate and develop female professionals working across the energy field and provide them with a powerful network and leadership training. I wanted WEN's membership to be diverse in race, religion, organizations, and professions. I also wanted them to have fun. As Cyndi Lauper's famous 1983 song, "Girls Just Want to Have Fun," explained. Constantly we had social events, but not golf, hunting, and fishing, which were the only options at the time, and we were rarely invited to those anyway. You have never seen such happy women in your life as our first event. It was a fashion show at the downtown Brennan's with a clothing consultant. And we had the best time. We've never experienced, a group of women in the industry having fun, and this clothing consultant was great. Last but not least, I wanted WEN to have a charitable mission because I knew that we had been blessed to have jobs in energy, so we needed to share that blessing with others. Now, there's obviously no internet back in 1994, so WEN grew by word of mouth. And, the women I invited, they brought their friends in energy, and then they brought their friends, and so it just organically grew. And, the key to success for any organization is staying true to its vision and purpose. And for 30 years, WEN has done this and consistently had extraordinary leaders that I watch WEN every year, and I'm just so dazzled by what the leaders of WEN do every year. The program, the expansion, just everything you do, I'm just so proud. And at the 10-year point, the membership hit 450, and I decided I needed to step down from the board because I didn't want WEN to suffer from founder syndrome when the founder just won't leave. And it really stifles creativity. And everybody thinks, and I've been in organizations where the founder won't leave, and they're generally not as successful as others that embrace new leadership. And I wasn't worried because I'd seen over the 10 years what great women stepped into these roles and, you know, what they added to WEN each and every year. And so the current board and the global board, I love saying that term, global board, are amazing women.
Well, thank you. What has surprised you most about WEN as we've grown, since we're talking about growing over these 30 years?
Well, I always thought WEN would probably grow, but in the more energy popular states. And I didn't see the growth in so many states. And so that probably surprised me the most. And then, of course, you know, in my dreams, I thought, well, WEN might go global, but, you know, it's certainly nothing that I could have added anything to. And of course, now you've done that. And so it's in the 30 years, WEN has grown from 7 women to approximately 7,300 women, you know, in the United States, you know, Mexico, Puerto Rico, or is it Puerto Rico, Gillian?
Dominican. Yeah. There is interest in Puerto Rico, though. There is. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it really has grown over these 30 years. It's really awesome. One last question for you before we move on to some of our other panelists. Can you elaborate maybe on some of the challenges or disparities that women face in the energy industry that also motivated you to take action?
Women, as other minorities, it wasn't just women. If you were really good, you'd be promoted to a manager level. The creme de la creme might be promoted to a director level, but they were not being promoted to an officer level. And and that is changing, but it still needs to keep improving. The work is not done. And the social events were always male-centric, and most women didn't really want to participate. They weren't really encouraged. And those kind of social events and dinners with clients and colleagues, they're so important to developing relationships in the industry and for your success. If you don't have those relationships, you're not going to have the kind of success that you want. So those were the key things.
Well, thank you so much, Karyl. You truly are an inspiration to so many of us, and we're very lucky to have this organization. You know, I talk to people constantly about what has WEN done for them. You know, it's not only growing our network, it's making friends, it's getting jobs, especially during COVID, you know, learning how to be on a board or be a mentee or a mentor. So many just wonderful events, and I think we still have a lot of fun too. So I'm glad that's carried through as well. Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody has any questions or anything for Karyl, go ahead and put those in the chat, and we'll try to get to those at the end. All right, let's turn our focus over to Erin and Tara. So one thing I did want to mention is that we do have 25 chapters now, and we're continuing to expand and look at adding new chapters constantly. We've experienced tremendous growth in the past 30 years, as we just discussed. So let's talk to some of our esteemed past presidents of WEN Global, whose invaluable insights and experiences have been instrumental in shaping the trajectory of our organization. So we're going to talk here with Erin Magee, who is the owner of Stage 4 Consulting, LLC. She's an experienced employment attorney and strategic HR advisor and trainer. And Tara Meek, an environmental specialist with Williams. They're both founders of the Greater Pittsburgh chapter, which is one of our largest chapters and was formerly known as WEN Appalachia, or Appalachia, depending on how you say that. You both were instrumental in the start of the foundation, which Erin is the current chair of. corporate membership initiatives. That's kind of when I started, and Tara was doing all these membership things. Moving our presence from national to global. So let's start with Tara. Each month we receive inquiries on starting a WEN chapter. What's your advice to women who want to start a WEN chapter in their area?
So I just want to start by starting a WEN chapter is very rewarding. I'm going to leave that there. But you knew the but was coming. It requires dedication, organization, and collaboration, a lot of collaboration. Some of my key takeaways from helping to start the Pittsburgh chapter, then going on to the global board as a membership director, where I helped launch several chapters. It was one of our many years of growth during the global board transition. My key takeaways are: first, hold an interest meeting. Make sure there's interest in your area. And also make sure you approach the formation from a cultural respect. So when I was on the global board, we went to Canada, and I got a little bit of training, cultural training, to make sure that I wasn't offending anybody in that area. So I definitely recommend getting some type of cultural training if you're going to a different country to start a chapter. And then after the interest is established, you just gather a group of really passionate individuals who share in the vision of empowering women in the industry, and then develop goals, objectives for the chapter, align them with WEN's mission and values, which is networking and building relationships within the industry with those stakeholders, both locally and globally, within WEN's broader networks. And then gaining support and momentum for the chapter, basically. And also make sure you leverage resources and guidance provided by WEN's global board and existing chapters. So I believe the DC chapter, when they came in, we kind of tried to mentor that chapter a little bit to make sure that they were successful. At least that's how my memory serves me. Erin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But you just want to make sure you want to keep the momentum for the chapter formation going. So definitely rely on the global board and other chapters that have been successful, like the Pittsburgh chapter. But
will you describe a little bit about our WEN formation sessions? We still hold those today, and I'm pretty sure you started that back when you were membership director.
Yeah, so we go to different companies. We use this whenever we try to gain interest in a chapter formation too. So it's sort of an informational session all about Women's Energy Network, the different positions we have, the different sponsorships that we have, all the different types of events, what you can get out of the network, collaboration with throughout the network, and sort of where our footprint lies. So I might be missing a few things, but basically it's a presentation that Women's Energy Network comes in. We've done it here at Williams a few times. That's how we got our corporate membership. So go Williams. And many other companies, we've done it to so many other companies, and we usually see some type of corporate membership come out of it. I started that when I was on the global board.
I was gonna say, I remember you starting it. All right, Erin, same question. What's your advice to women who want to start a WEN chapter?
Well, when we started Appalachia, I think it was important to we had a core of about 4 women, and it's important to get that core group that's going to drive the build out of the chapter. We looked around the community and determined who the major players were in the energy industry, both operations and service providers. And I even cold called a couple of companies and said, hey, I want somebody to be on this board. Do you have anybody for me? So it's important to get not only the support of the folks that are in your area and those businesses, but it's also important to get the support of your employers, because you're going to be spending a lot of time initially doing this. And so, your employer should be backing you 100% and should probably be your first sponsor. Because I tell folks all the time, WEN is not real life. Your job and your family come first. And but WEN is a really rewarding experience. But you need that support behind you. I'd suggest we tried all kinds of different events at first. You're going to find different audiences. Online Zoom didn't exist when we started Appalachia in 2011. So you've got a whole different audience to serve, but you'll find people that are interested in networking. You'll find people that are interested in the educational piece. You'll find people are interested in different times of the day going to events. So just try lots of things and understand that not everything's going to work, but it's okay. And the other thing that I recommend a lot is that, we as women, sometimes we are the queens of overcomplicating things. I know I am. That's the lawyer in me probably, but keep it simple if you can, and take easy wins. And don't forget that, anything that you do, anything that you pull off is successful. And, we were the first, so Appalachia was the first chapter outside of Texas and Louisiana. And so we didn't know if it was going to work. And 13 years later, we're still around. So Tara and I were just like crossing our fingers that we'd make it 5 years, probably 1 year. But it's really rewarding to take Karyl's vision and help bring it to other areas of the United States.
So were you both involved in the Texas chapter? Is that how that conversation kind of grew to get to a WEN Appalachia?
No, we were put together by one of my business development folks at my old firm, Jackson Kelly. She had gotten hold of Tara. We knew about the organization, and Mary Hendricks is her name, and we honor her every day. She came to me and said, there's this organization that it's all professional women in the energy industry. And I was like, oh my God, how does this not exist already? And so we started Appalachia with 4 women that eventually became 10, and a lot of time and dedication.
Yeah, and one thing that you brought up is, I know a lot of people will talk about how did they get involved in WEN, and they'll say Tara. They'll say Tara's name, oh, because Tara talked to me. And so that's really important too when starting a board is, like you said, talk to people around you. And we're looking for diversity of companies and, types of energy and, just trying to really grow that board. But, it's also important to note, and Erin, we just talked about this recently, that our organization is made up of all volunteers. So at the local level and at the global level. And I think that that's really awesome if you think about it. And I was trying to do the math a little bit, but it's, 25 chapters, and you've got a board of at least 10, if not 12, or more. That's a lot of volunteers across globally.
Yeah. And I think
okay.
that's one thing, because I think it's important. That's WEN's sweet spot, is that we're a nonprofit organization. We have volunteer leaders that we help build into better leaders. And we still have in-person events. And I think that aspect is really important and what differentiates us from other folks in the market. Thank you for letting me.
Yeah. Well, I kind of threw that one out there. So Erin, what are some key lessons that you've learned along the way, and how do you think that those lessons or experiences have influenced your perspective on gender diversity initiatives within the energy industry?
Well, I look at WEN as, going back to Karyl's comments, WEN was DEI before there was a DEI, and we'll be standing after there's a DEI as a trend, because there's just this organic growth of women coming together. And we hopefully have our eye on all kinds of diversity and helping to bring that into, as Karyl said, the C-suite, not only early to mid career growth, but getting all the way to the executive level and making sure that all kinds of voices are heard, because that makes for a better industry. It makes for a better organization. So that's been my great takeaway, to see, again, the organic growth, and we don't have to worry about trends because we were here before it got trendy.
Thank you. Tara, same question to you. What are some key lessons that you've learned?
So I think some of the key lessons is that you do have to have stakeholders outside of the organization. For example, your male influences, regardless of the effectiveness or not, the stakeholders are important and they do have representation for you and they can provide support. And they've been a tremendous help to our initiatives. So it was like just having the men within Williams that have brought in the corporate membership and support our involvement with Women's Energy Network. And they definitely profoundly say that they support Women's Energy Network. So it's really good. Some of the other things is just the mentorship within Women's Energy Network, just creating that culture of mentorship. Obviously, Erin is my mentor. And so I have Erin there and she's created me, and then I create I become the mentor to everybody else. So creating that culture, I think that helps empower women. And then just taking time and persevering, really. Just you got to slow down and realize that each little win is a win.
Well, thank you both for your time. If anyone has a question for Tara or Erin, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll see them here in a couple of minutes, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move over to our immediate past president, Andrea Tettleton, managing partner of the Baton Rouge office of Seba and Sepulvedo, recent oil and gas investors, influential women in energy, and Byrne, I was like twice removed, past president, 2022 global president, Valve's commercial leader in industrial energies and technology product company of Baker Hughes. So welcome, both of you. Again, everybody has really amazing bios. I encourage you to check them out. I think we're going to drop their LinkedIns in the chat. So I don't want to, read them and bore everybody because we've had a lot of great conversations. So we'll continue, but everybody has really amazing bios. I really encourage you to reach out to these women and check them out. You both have seen WEN from many different perspectives. You've led regionally, nationally, and then moved to global. So let's start with Kara. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in launching strategic initiatives and growing the Women's Energy Network?
I mean, the biggest challenge is always time, right? This is volunteer work. This is something that we all do because it's a passion of our own. And what many don't realize is you get this great idea, but it's going to take weeks, months, sometimes years to actually move forward with whatever you think of, because you have your day job, you have your family, you have everything else. And that's part of the beauty of WEN, is that you can grow your network and you can grow your connections and you can grow your skill set, but you still have a limited amount of time. And so I think that's the biggest challenge that I've ever run into. But with the group of women and allies that we do put together, I've never seen anything be impossible. So that's the beauty of it.
Andrea, same question. What are some of the challenges that you faced?
I think that WEN is unique. I think some professional organizations that I'm a part of are kind of centered around your profession. So it's attorney central, or it's engineering central, or it's accounting central. And we're special in the fact that we have women across all of these professional backgrounds. And so I, want to struggle with making sure that all of these women continue to be professionally enriched and providing content that expands beyond our little individual work sectors. And so I think we're really unique that we have that opportunity, but just to continue to think of, ideas leadership wise, or, kind of soft skill wise, so we can keep everyone engaged across all these different professions.
The diversity is huge. That's the problem, is that we're not just people who are 2 years out of college or people who are in the C-suite. It's all over the place. I completely agree with Andrea.
Yeah, and I think when I first started, it was a lot of people in that 0 to 5, 5 to 10 year mark. And now, I mean, obviously we're 30 years, we're celebrating 30 years. We've obviously got women who are, in the industry for 15, 20 years easily, which is really exciting. So how do you see WEN evolving in the future? Andrea, I'll ask you that question. What impact do you hope it will have on the energy industry?
I have two big impacts, I hope. I know that I might sound like a broken record. I think I say this all of the time, if anyone's heard me spoke anywhere, but I'm an oil and gas attorney. I live in the oil and gas world. And I know that in the outside world, the energy sectors are kind of pit against one another. And I think it's very unique. Again, just like we have different professions, we have different energy sectors. We've tried really hard to include renewables and utilities and solar and wind and all these other things. And I hope that we can see as an organization that all types of energy are beneficial. We need to succeed in all types of energy. You know, one hand shakes the other. And I think that we're really to provide that. And I think that we could be really great advocates for that in the future. So that's my hope for that. And then I love the global expansion. I know that I was on the board when we changed it from national to global because we had Mexico. And, you know, we brought in Dominican Republic, and I really want us to continue this international expansion organically. You know, I think sometimes we see an area and we kind of try to force it in, and it's not prime for that yet. But I think the larger we get, we have a lot of great interest, and I think that would really, really exciting.
Tara, how about you? How do you see WEN evolving in the future?
You know, I see WEN as an incubator of the future. And I say that because we have so many people across so many different portions of the industry, so many segments of it, so many people who are interested in energy that are coming from other industries. And WEN is a safe space to actually share our thoughts, ideas, the plans for the future, the skill sets that we need to grow together. Anybody who comes to the conference will just realize that there is a huge world of energy out there that you don't see every single day. But WEN is one area that I know of that pulls everything together, and you can learn about anything. I used to say 10 years ago when I was just working at Houston chapter, I said, you know, you can put any tool in your tool belt because WEN is here to provide you that tool and to provide you that skill set. It never rings more true than it does today, because now the one beautiful thing that the pandemic created for us was it created a smaller world. We are more connected across the 25 chapters than we ever were before, because as Erin said, WEN is a place to have in-person networking events, but we can still continue to have the conversation across the different chapters, across the internet, and across social media, and across Glue Up, our website, right? We've got so many different ways to converse now and learn from each other. The world is our oyster. We just have to learn how to take advantage of it.
So I'm going to ask you both another question. What's some advice that you could provide for the global board now and in the future? And for those that want to join the global board?
I can start. I think the biggest thing for the global board is to really continue to empower the local chapters. To me, they are the heartbeat and the connection and the lifeblood of WEN. Those local connections, those local activities that bring together all of the different people from all of the different companies and segments of the industry. That's where the relationships start. So that's where we're connected locally. But the network then will help to expand it to a global reach. And so to me, if Global does anything, or if anyone wants to join Global, know that it's not about you on the global board. It's about the chapters and it's about the members, because that is truly a servant leadership position.
Yeah, I would kind of echo that. I would, you know, to keep it is a challenge to go from leading at the chapter level to leading at the global level, because you have to go from, you know, micro to macro. And so to keep your eye on the ultimate prize, which is to continue WEN as an organization for another 30 years, for another 100 years. And for people that are interested, I always say, well, apply. I mean, I remember when I put my hat in the ring, I was like, well, maybe, who knows? I'm sure hundreds of people are going to apply for this position. And I think we know if any of us are on local boards, that's not always the case sometimes. So just, you know, put your name out there. And I've been on the global board. This is my 5th year. I lost track. But it's really rewarding. It's been it's just been very exciting to grow and shape the global board and to shape the energy industry, you know, from the top down, I think.
Well, and selfishly, like if you look at it from your own skill set, you now, by going from a chapter board to the global board, you are making that shift mentally to go from tactical to strategic. And that is a skill set that then you can bring back to your own company and a different viewpoint. And it can help you build your growth mindset and the approach to inclusiveness and the approach that your own company makes. So there are so many benefits to serving on both local and global boards. I could go on and on and on. But to me, making that shift from the tactical to strategic is very hard for a lot of people. And it's something that you have to learn very quickly when you get onto the global board.
Yeah, I've definitely learned that fast.
Exactly.
But you both have helped me, Andrea especially. I'm always like texting her and needing help with that. But it's been a lot of fun and it's been really great. So thank you both of you. Please stay on. We're gonna have Tara, Erin, and Karyl join us as well for a couple of questions. So if we can get their cameras back on as well. Okay, so this question is for each of you, and I'll call you out by name, but can you share your favorite WEN event to date? And we'll start with Andrea.
Well, I'm biased because I think South Louisiana has a great signature event. We have our holiday tea at the Windsor Court every year, and it's a tea, but it's really bottomless champagne. I mean, tea is served, but it's just it's festive. It's a wrap up for the year. We get to award our scholarships to students, and it's always a great time. So my biased answer is my hometown event in South Louisiana.
I love that. Tara.
I'm completely biased too. Of course, it's the one that I created, and it's a 10-year anniversary, the Women's Energy Network Boots and Ball Gowns Gala. And it's kind of a nod towards Houston. It's a great event. It was something that Pittsburgh, well, maybe the whole entire energy industry was missing, which is you get dressed up in a gown and you put boots on because that's what you wore during the day. And everybody gets to have a good time and get to network, and we give out awards and we have a charity. So it has every little aspect of an event to it. So it's really evolved over years, and I loved seeing it.
I would have to say that's one of my favorite events as well. I would say the first time I went, I had no idea. And then it's really grown and it's really awesome. So if you ever want to come up to Pittsburgh, anybody, let us know. Come to Boots and Ball Gowns.
Yeah, if you have to answer, you would be in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. Car, what's your favorite?
I will say I've seen the Boots and Ball Gown pictures, post-event pictures, and I am jealous that you guys have all gone there. Someday I will get there. I personally, I've got so many, whether it's the conference or Young Women Energized or even just the virtual events that we have, but ultimately my absolute favorite is the mentoring circles. I always tell people, if you do nothing else in WEN, do the mentoring circles, because the connections that you make are lifelong from those 9 to 12 months that you spend with those circles. You make friends for life. You make, a board of directors, a personal board of directors for yourself. They help keep you on track. And honestly, they're the entire reason I started volunteering for WEN altogether, because my mentor literally said, "Thou shalt do this," because you look like you would be a great volunteer. And so they also can help you get engaged with WEN, because there are so many things to do within WEN. So
you were voluntold.
I was voluntold, and I learned that skill set very quickly, and a lot of you guys know that. So.
And just a little plug on the conference, we do have some speed networking, mentoring workshops. So we're really excited for that as well. We've had a ton of interest and really looking forward to that at the conference. Karyl, you had maybe touched on this earlier, but what's your favorite event?
Well, the singular event was that fashion show I talked about, but the ongoing events, I have to agree with Tara. I love the mentoring program because it's so important to have mentors that you can relate to. I've had some great male mentors, but it's just different when it comes from another female.
And Erin, what's your favorite WEN event?
So back in the day, in between the biennial conference years, we used to have a retreat that was a smaller across WEN gathering, and we had one at Nemacolin Resort, and I don't even remember the year, but Tara probably remembers. And there were, I'd say, 70 of us learning leadership issues or organizational lectures, and we got to know each other on a very much more intimate level because there was a smaller group. And that's where I met Rachel Miller, who was the global president before me and a mentor to Kara, and one of our first Denver members. So
Awesome. So I want to ask this question too, because we have seen a lot of interest in different areas. Where do you want to see a future WEN chapter? And anybody can answer, or you don't have to. I just thought I would throw that one out there.
I'm still in love with the idea of getting a chapter up and running in the Middle East somewhere. Doesn't matter where. The people that I talk to in my company and to other customers out there that I work with, they just are so hungry for a network like WEN. And wouldn't it be beautiful if we could figure out how to give the gift of our network to that region?
For me, it's about unfinished business in Canada. And the fact that we have like 60 women come to our interest meeting shows that there was an interest there. And then we have a lot of our corporate members like Exxon, Shell, those companies are already there. And I feel like it would be a nice gateway for the United States and Canada and having those events together. So just about unfinished business. I'd like to do it.
Gillian and I spoke to, I don't remember the name of the organization, but there's a group of women from Southeast Asia that comes to the United States for a month or so. They travel around and learn about the energy industry, and they were housed in DC for a minute. So we did a WEN formation session in connection with the DC chapter, and we have some interest out of there. So I would love to see a WEN chapter pop up way across the world over there.
I'd like to see one in South America. I think there's, some great resources down there, and the women in countries like particularly Venezuela could really benefit from WEN.
Erin, you got any?
well, Singapore was on my list, but that got just about taken. So I would say Australia. There's lots of energy activity down under, and a market that we never, to my knowledge, really explored.
All great options and willing to travel. Sally and I talk about it all the time. We're willing to go to these places on behalf of WEN. All right, so now for a fun question. This is what the podcast does. I encourage you to listen to the podcast because it's a lot of fun, and at the end they'll ask some fun questions. It kind of lets you peek into someone's world that they keep hidden. So I'm going to start with Kara, and this is a question for everybody, but what's your favorite guilty pleasure TV show or movie that you secretly enjoy?
So I do not admit this very frequently, but I was traveling a lot last month and I got extremely sick. Unfortunately, I sat next to somebody on the airplane that had COVID. And so, but the interesting part was I watched a show that I never watched, which was The Bachelor. And so I was excited because I was going to watch the entire season. And then I got to the end and there were still 2 episodes left. So I had to wait the next 2 weeks to actually figure out who they selected. My husband was silently or loudly judging me, but it was still so much fun. It's just good guilty pleasure there.
Love it. Erin, how about you?
So not a lot of people know this about me, but I'm a huge NASCAR fan. And I did that because I did it deliberately when I grew up in the coal industry and working and supporting those clients. And I had nothing to talk to the fellows about, but got into racing to have something that I could relate to the minors about. So, and 25 years later, I still love NASCAR.
I love that. How about you, Karyl?
This is something I've never admitted either. What your confessions has this turned into. The first show I ever binge watched with my husband was 24, and I just loved it. So
That's a good one. That
Yeah.
is. How about you, Andrea?
This is not guilty, and I'm a loud and proud Real Housewives lover. So
I did know that.
She definitely
I-
loves it. We talk
Yeah.
every time she gets a chance. She talks.
Not
about
even a secret.
I love it. Loud and proud. What about you, Tara?
I'm going to be louder and prouder and just say anything Bravo, Below Deck, Summer House, Southern Hospitality, like obsessed with all of the Bravo things. Anyone that knows me knows that just go away if there's Bravo on. Leave me alone. And I tried to get it into BravoCon, but the tickets were sold out in like 2 minutes. So
Aw. I love that. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn it back to Maggie just to end today. But thank you, everyone, for taking time to talk with us. And I hope people learned a lot today. And we could keep talking forever. So maybe this will be a future podcast. You never know.
Let me take myself off mute. That's a great idea. And Tara, I just moved to Charleston, so there's a couple of Bravo shows down here that I can, if you come visit, I can take you around.
the Republic.
Yes, yes. And right across the street is Craig's Sewing Down South Shore or store. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much to our panelists, our founder, our past presidents, and also to our sponsor, Petrocap Properties. So keep an eye out for future events. Our next global event will be in May. It'll be a partner spotlight with the Solar Energy International that we're, and you can go on our website as well and look at our partners to see what benefits WEN members can get through that partnership. So again, everyone have a wonderful Thursday, wonderful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you at the conference.